and you can see here version 1.0.7. So I heard there was a new update. Checked it on there and then posted this. And then someone asked a very interesting question. Do you know what the improvements were? Do you know what changed between version 1.06 and 1.07? And yeah, I was like, good question. I really don't know. I didn't think about it much. I didn't see, when we look at it, we don't see the bridge fee changing. We still see it 0%. So what did change? So that took me down a rabbit hole. So shout out to Red Viking, which, I think every once in a while somebody asks some very interesting question, which I didn't even think, I hadn't thought about before. And I thought, okay, this would be good evergreen content just to go down. And it's intellectually interesting for me. So yeah, I was like, I don't know, but maybe not that hard to figure out. And I give that with the context of, I've worked in tech for a long time on the engineering side. So for me, a lot of this stuff is just, I did it before, but in a different context type of thing, as far as discovery and research and all that stuff too. So again, let's nerd out for a moment here. I'll try to make it quick, and you may not understand much of it, but hopefully this will be helpful for in the future, because I'm gonna, in the future, like, why not? Different IPFS apps get released. This would be an interesting way. Maybe I'll do some more diffing in the future to see what changed because we don't have like if you, on the client side, if you look at the clients for, let's GitLab, PulseChain Com. If you go here and we have new releases for the clients for validators, such as, Aragon, GoPulse, Geth, or Go, what we call it, GPLS, if you want to pulsify it a little bit. When new stuff's released, we can see releases here, and you can subscribe and get updates on this stuff as well. But when there's new releases of this stuff, we can see, okay, there's a new version here. It was released 3 days ago, and it updated to, it looks like the latest, PulseChain, or the latest Ethereum version of Go ETH or Geth. Added some PulseChain boot nodes, all that stuff. So, and it gives you the notable upstream changes. So full support for the Cancun upgrade, different stuff here. Again, this is a validator AMA, but I've talked about before, different reasons to update, different reasons you can wait, critical ones versus not critical, all that stuff. We'll get into it here. But anyways, when new versions of the clients come out, you can see the changes here. But for the IPFS apps, I'm not aware of any place to see what has actually changed. So, you don't need a dev team to tell you what's changed if you know how to compare code and use diffing tools and all that stuff. So I was actually there's got to be a way to download these apps. And there is. Yeah, you could just use this Kubo client. So if you type in Kubo IPFS, it took me a little bit to figure out the best way to do all this stuff. But yeah, if you use the Kubo, let's put this in the chat. If you use the Kubo client, you basically could just use IPFS commands, the client at the command line. And if you install it and then initialize it, configure all that stuff, this is all commands to do it at a terminal for Linux. And there's you can I think they're pretty was equivalent type of stuff to do for if you use a Windows Max trying it on, but I just use Linux for this type of stuff because it's so much easier. So first step, I installed the IPFS client so I can download the apps, and on the thing that also keeps the bridge and stuff updated at a minute. I think it got to set on a minute timer. It checks and see if there's a new version, updates the site, does all that stuff, and then keeps all the verification stuff going good too. I was checking the log because I do a log just to see, just for debugging mostly. But I'm like, oh, cool. I can actually see, I can capture the previous one because you really don't know the previous version's address because the site keeps it up to date. So, and they don't list it. If you go here, or if you go to here, they don't list it either. They just list the latest version because why would they? They don't need to list all the previous versions and stuff. So yeah, I just happened to capture the previous IPFS hashes and stuff for version 1.06. And then of course, 1.07 is the latest. Got those hashes. And then in order to download the apps, which just download them into a folder with all the different artifacts and JavaScript and all the stuff in there, you do IPFS, get, and then the hash, and then -o is just output, and the directory you want to output it to. For example, I'll just use bridge version 1.06. Same thing with version 1.07. And then there's a tool, again, it's been around forever, If you're a nerd, you may have heard of it. It's called diff. And what diff does recursively do a unified diff and output the changes into changes.diff file between the two versions of the files of the directories that were downloaded. So to go through all the files in the directory, see what's changed, see what's different, and then tell you that output. And then once opened up all the changes, you can see pluses and minuses for removals and additions and stuff. I noticed the JavaScript files had been updated because there wasn't much in there that was interesting other than that. So updated the main JavaScript file, and then I looked a little deeper and started diffing these files as well to see what changed. And there's a bunch of it's like packed and obfuscated and all this stuff. I spent most of my time spent was just going to different like tools and resources to figure out can you prettify this? Can you make it readable? Because it's just imagine one line of compacted code that's literally just there to either for obfuscation or for, not in a bad way or anything. It's just like people don't need to read source code of this stuff when it's out on the web. Like it just isn't necessary. And so only the devs really need to learn source code unless they open source it and do all this stuff. But again, all this public information. You release an app, it's all, anyone can unpack it and go through and look at your website and view source, and it just takes more or less time. But a lot of times it's make it more efficient, change the variable names to smaller ones and just all kinds of different stuff. Anyways, so eventually ran the JavaScript files through, prettifiers, unpackers, stuff like that. And then got some output, which was still just a whole bunch of layers to go through. But eventually I was like, oh, cool. It looks like they changed the Ethereum RPC URL from this one, this public one, to Gamma's public one. You can see the minus here. They took this one out and put this one in. And then I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense, because I heard a lot of people complaining about RPC errors and stuff on the bridge. So I never ran anything myself, but I saw people were talking about that. It's like, oh, they probably released this new version just to test out using Gamma stuff after they've seen it working and stuff for a while, I imagine. So shout out to Gamma. I mean, he's doing a lot of RPC services, and even apparently the PulseChain Bridge by default is using it. So yeah, there may be some other changes. I kind of stopped there. I was like, oh, there look like a lot of interesting things happening, but maybe in the future versions, maybe previous ones. I didn't go through and diff the previous ones either, especially when the fees stuff changed and all that. But who knows? If I get bored, maybe I'll do some more stuff at some point. But in the future, yeah, it'd be interesting to see what changed. In the past, it's kind of already there. But and funny enough, I was like, so this is literally looking at the deep code level, and then I was like, oh, let me just go check the bridge and see. And literally, if you go to the bridge and click the gear, so oh yeah, Gamma's URL is the default one. Now they did change it, I imagine, from the what the code says from the previous version, from the public node one to gamma.io one. So yeah, I just posted that here as well. So anyways, I thought it was interesting to go through that of okay, I start from nothing. I don't know how to get an IPFS. I don't know how to download an IPFS app. I know it's possible. It doesn't sound that hard to do, but you got to download it. You got to use diffing tools. You got to unpack the JavaScript and do all this stuff, and then look for the changes after diffing it. Again, to me, it's, I didn't spend a lot of time on it just because, a lot of the stuff I did a bunch of other times in different contexts. I just applying some of those tech skills to crypto, basically at this point, or crypto projects and apps and stuff. So I learned about IPFS, a little bit more about it and all that stuff in the process. Not that you really need to know much, but that was interesting to go through that. And that was a big question, right? Every time there's a new version of the bridge, oh, did they turn the fees back on? And it's like, no, I mean, it still says 0%. I don't think I've bridged since version 107, but it says 0% here. So I didn't see anything in the code that changed it. I could have missed something, but I didn't see anything either. And I don't hear anyone reporting there are fees now. So, but the next version, when they do version 108, maybe they will. And anyone is free to go look at the code, diff between them, see what changed. Literally, here's all the instructions just to see what the public changes are. Since, for the clients, like I said, for the validator stuff, we have a code repository. We can see all the stuff nicely written out here as far as the upstream changes that they just basically updating people on for what they are using now, as well as the custom changes for PulseChain. But anyone is free to, go download the client and play with themselves. I just thought, hey, it'd be fun to go through this go from 0 to, hey, I downloaded and diffed an IPFS app version, and it just happened to be PulseChain Bridge. It could be anything else. It could be any of the other apps. It could be Hexact. It could be, anything else.